in a world that's falling apart.
Two friends roll the dice on movies and talk about the roles each film has had in their lives and more.
It's Cinema Roll!
Hello, I'm your host, Fish, and let's give it up for your other host.
Hi, that's me, Squid. In our last episode, we rolled the dice to choose a movie.
Bridget Jones's Diary.
This episode's movie was Bridget Jones's Diary, released in 2001.
Bridget works in publishing and used to play naked in my paddling pool.
Fish, had you seen this movie before?
No, I had not seen this one before.
I had not seen it before either. I found out tonight that my husband had actually seen this movie, and he said, and I quote, "Geez, you guys are so uncultured."
So in other words, this is one of his secret favorites, and he watches it all the time when he's out of town.
Most
it's his airplane
definitely.
movie. It's his
It is.
airplane
He
movie.
probably has it downloaded on his phone, and he watches it every time he flies,
has it on
which is a lot.
several devices. He's bought it in multiple platforms, and
He definitely owns a t-shirt for sure. I only watched it twice. I streamed it once on Pluto TV and then once again on YouTube TV, because between the time I watched it the first time and the second time, Pluto stopped having it available. Both times I watched it included commercials, which felt very 2001 to me. Did you stream it or?
Yeah, so I watched this 3 times, and not because it was so amazing, but just because I felt for the purpose of the pod and the notes, I had to get through it 3 times. But my library came in clutch again on this one, but also introduced me to something new, which is Canopy with a K, which was an app that I was able to get on my Roku TV that had like a weird rental system where basically you get like a series of credits each month through the library, and like I get like 15 credits or whatever a month. Bridget Jones' Diary costs 4 credits every time you watch it, and you get it for 72 hours, something like that. So it was an interesting way to watch something. It was ad free, which is good. It cost me nothing, which is nice. And
I'm gonna have to check that
again,
out.
another library perk that I was unaware of up to this point. They had a lot of movies in there, and again, because they just reset your credits at the beginning of every month, I was able to just keep re-renting it till I was done with my watches.
Nice. I had an interesting challenge on YouTube TV where the second time I went to watch it, I started playing it, and it was actually the second movie that started playing, and I ended up having to find the second movie on YouTube TV, and I played that, and it played the first movie. I'm not gonna lie, I did actually like it way more than I thought I would, and I kind of get why it was so popular and why it was such a big deal, for sure.
Yeah, I really went back and forth on it. I mean, in my first watch, I was not super sold on it. My second watch, I enjoyed it more. And then my third watch, I kind of found myself somewhere in between watches 1 and 2. There are a lot of things that I'm sure we'll get into that are problematic in a late 90s, early 2000s way. And a lot of this, I think, for me, has to do with my relationship with Renee Zellweger in the movies. I've always been a fan. And so seeing her in kind of a tougher role like this,
I thought
where
she was great. Her accent I thought was really good.
I don't mean
Her bad singing.
I don't
was
mean the
fantastic.
role as an actress. I mean as the character specifically.
Okay, yeah.
I've seen her as a lot of different characters, and there's a lot going on with Bridget Jones that I had no idea what I was walking into with this. And so it was just a large departure for me from the other Renee Zellweger roles that I'm used to.
Mhm.
So I think that's why I kind of had this roller coaster of where I ended up on this. So we'll get into that a little more later. But yeah, I mean, it was fine. I'll say it was fine.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, the only thing that I really knew about this movie going into it was that outside of it starring Renee Zellweger and Hugh Grant, I remember it being a big deal that she had gained a lot of weight for the role. And because it was the early 2000s, like she was unabashedly fat shamed throughout like the movie and the promotion for it and all that. We'll touch on that a little bit more later, I am sure. But that was pretty much the only thing. So I kind of went into it with that, knowing that about it, and that was pretty much, and that it was like, you know, peak rom-com girl movie. But
That was
other
more
than
than
that,
I knew about it. So That's all right. Before we jump into the movie proper, I don't usually have like studio card, title card notes when I'm doing this, but when I was watching this, I don't know if you felt this way, but I felt like Studio Canal had a wild opening credits card. And I'm picturing somebody in the studio or in the room when they're trying to come up with what they want their title card to look like. And just being like, I don't know, man, let's just put a bunch of numbers in the back and then let's go into space. We're going to add some lasers and lightning and stars and then a comet. If you do a comet, then somebody
It was
else.
very Y2K.
Should we put our name in it? Oh yeah, I guess. Like,
oh,
I don't know.
shoot,
It's just
yeah.
crazy.
I
Like,
forgot.
maybe we should put the name in at the end. There's so many things going on, and I was like, why? I don't know. One of those things where I was just like, I don't know why you're putting so much into this. It's literally like a 3-second title card, but hey, you do you.
Yeah.
Proud of the studio, I guess.
Before we get too deep into things, we both had something special to pay attention to in this movie. I had rolled a 2, which was paying attention to color theory yet again. And what was it that you had rolled again?
It was for cinematography, which proved to be a pretty good one.
I had one related note to cinematography because it was a female directed movie, and I thought it was filmed with a really interesting mix of male and female gaze. Like there's definitely some focus on Bridget's body, but at the same time, like you see the realness of it. Like when she's running down the street after Mark, like you see her thighs jiggling and her butt jiggles a little when she like wiggles her little bunny tail. And I really, really appreciated that as part of this.
If it were not a
because...
female director, it probably would have been another really problematic thing. But
absolutely.
Or not, or maybe just not done at all. Maybe it wouldn't have been done as well. I don't know. But
I think it would have been a very different movie if it was not a female directed movie.
yeah. So one of the first things I clocked me, partially just because it happens right at the beginning, was that, and I don't know if people think this way, maybe they do, but Bridget says that she's been single for 32 years. She is 32, but like you don't count the first, I don't know, 18 years of that as being single, right? Certainly not.
I mean,
like, so I started dating in high school, even if you start counting that, right? Like, so whatever.
yeah,
I was
14.
16
Yeah.
when I
14, 15.
or 15, 16, something like that. So certainly the years prior to when I started dating, I did not be like, well, let's see, I was single for like 16 years, and because I was not at a dating age. I don't know. I'm sure it was just meant to be funny, and I'm overthinking it like I often do with things. But just the idea that she was like, I'm single for 32 years, but is 32.
I hadn't thought of that.
If you're writing a diary and you're trying to be a little dramatic and whatever, and you want it to sound, whatever, then yeah, I mean, obviously to say, oh, I've been single for 32 years certainly makes it sound better than 14 or 16 years or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, it also could have been just as dramatic for her to say, I've been single my entire adult life.
Right.
So.
For my entire life, which is basically what she said. So yeah, fair.
Yeah.
Totally switching gears here. Do you have any idea what a turkey curry buffet is? I'm guessing this is going to be one of those cultural things that we're not going to understand. And I did not look it up at all.
I did not look it up. I kind of assumed it was like a weird thing her mom did. Like her mom's tradition was to have a turkey curry buffet every year for the neighbors.
With a large
or her
focus on
friends or
pickles.
whatever. Yes. Gherkins with toothpicks.
Yeah, very important.
Which they definitely displayed on plates, and I found that I did appreciate that they did actually show that. But I don't know if it's like an actual British thing. I did have to remind myself a couple of times, despite the fact that everybody in this movie had a British accent. I did have to remind myself that like, oh, this isn't taking place in the United States. Things could have been different over there than they were for us then. Particularly the smoking thing, the fact that they were still smoking I shouldn't say still. They were smoking inside.
Also 25 years ago. So.
Right. And so I did a tiny little bit of research on it. They smoked in the office and in the house, presumably in the restaurants too, but I didn't really clock it in any of the restaurant scenes, and there weren't a whole lot of those. I think there were really only 2. But yeah, like the movie is 25 years old. I did a very, very, very shallow dive on, like I dipped my toe into a puddle on when smoking bans started, and it was about 5 years after this movie came out that smoking bans started trickling their way through the United United States, and it was about the same for Britain as well. So that would have been a totally normal thing in 2001, would be to just light up a cigarette at your parents' house over the turkey curry buffet and gherkins on toothpicks, or while you're making your friend's blue soup, which I actually thoroughly enjoyed the blue soup.
Christ, is that blue soup?
Yes.
Because it reminded me of the time that I made fondue for what was supposed to be a romantic dinner, and I followed the recipe and somehow managed to make purple cheese fondue because I used a white cheese and I used a red wine, which it had also called for. And in doing so, I made purple fondue, which was very, very strange. But it still tasted good. At least it didn't not taste good like the blue soup. But it was actually probably close to 20 years ago, and we still joke about it. So yeah, it made me think of that.
So I really felt like this party was a great way to introduce everything about the movie. Characters and just kind of the overall vibe. I have to say, one of my favorite things, and I say favorite in the sense that it's not personally directly relatable for me, but I feel like surely was for a lot of people, was just the whirlwind of what happens the second Bridget walks in the house. Like,
absolutely.
Within a minute, her mom mentions the Darcys, talks about the paddling pool, which comes up a lot, mentions that Mark is there, that he's a rich lawyer and divorced, makes a racist comment about his ex, makes a terrible comment about Bridget's outfit, saying that it looked like she came out of Auschwitz, suggested she'll never get a boyfriend dressing like that, and then is like, oh, and I already laid an outfit out on your bed. And all of that just one right after the other within about a minute of the movie.
Also, her greeting is like,
There you are, dumpling.
It felt like her mom basically was like, hey, fatso, welcome home. And then the party starts and she's immediately groped by her gross quote-unquote uncle.
Oh, Uncle Jeffrey is so creepy.
So I'm so glad I don't have an Uncle Jeffrey. So bad. Yeah. And no one seems to care or notice.
Yeah, I mean, no, you know that everybody just writes that up. Oh, that's just Uncle Jeffrey.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not okay. And again, probably something that would hopefully not get written off as much today. But yeah, definitely something that, they just write it off. So you can't say anything about it. That's just who he is.
Yep.
Okay, thoughts on Mark's reindeer sweater?
Not the worst thing I've seen.
Kind of like,
especially like around the holidays. But at the same time, like the ugly sweater is like a cultural phenomenon now. And as ugly sweaters go, that is nothing.
I kind of have an affinity for ugly sweaters. I like them. So I thought it was not that bad.
With a dachshund wrapped around it that I got because it looked like the dog. And out of its little butt is coming a little fart bubble with a heart inside it. It's a very on brand for our family, very on brand for our dog. It's adorable. I love it.
Did think it was kind of interesting / funny that shows up, he's wearing this, she's all excited about him for a second before he turns around, like, oh, maybe this is gonna be the one, right? And then turns around, he's got this sweater, and then of course he proceeds to say terrible things about her when she's just a couple feet back. And one of the things he criticizes is the way she dresses. And I was like, but your mom picked out an ugly sweater for you, man. You do not have a lot of room to talk here. So just throwing that out there.
He may have been projecting a little bit there.
Yeah.
Maybe passive aggressively needling his mother a little about it.
And then also he referred to her as a spinster at that point. Right. Yeah. And I was like, listen, first of all, right, again, she's a little bit younger than him. And that seems crazy to me to call somebody that. But also this isn't actually Pride and Prejudice. Like, I know it's supposed to be related to it, but with the whole Darcy's thing. But I was like, it's not actually Pride and Prejudice. She's not really a spinster at 32. But whatever.
It was also the early 2000s. And I mean, back then it was, for some people it was finish high school, get married, have babies. For others, it was finish high school, finish college, get married, have babies. So by the time you were 32, you would have presumably had your 2.5 kids with your house with the white picket fence and the dog. So I'm assuming it was the same over there in Britain. But
I mean, I am probably both having a hard time viewing this from a 25-year ago lens, because when it was 2001, I was not even 20 and did not think about anything like this at all. And also, right, from a male perspective, also don't really have to worry about people saying that. Never had to worry about anybody saying that of me. So there's that.
Yeah.
So following from that Christmas party, I thoroughly enjoyed the all by myself
Oh my God, I
scene in
so
the
loved
apartment.
that.
And it's funny because the other big time that shows up in a movie is Clueless, or at least that I can think of is Clueless in the whole like fountain scene, right? With the isn't that it with the I Love Josh scene? He has the big realization. I think that song is playing there. But regardless, whether I'm right, it's a fantastic scene where she's just sitting there and like you get the whole shot of the apartment and it's a long shot and she's alone and singing this song to herself.
And
I
like
loved that. Thought it
couch
was-
dancing along to it
Right.
absurdly. And
So
yeah, I clocked that too. And I said that song had gotten me through a breakup or two back then. Like I loved that whole album of hers. I was a big Celine Dion fan all throughout high school. Definitely
Fantastic.
cried myself to sleep to that whole entire album multiple times. So yeah, I felt that deeply, even though it wasn't after a breakup in her case.
It still was a pretty brutal, overall experience.
I liked
and
that it was
feeling
like-
lonely and,
Yeah, I liked that it was like listening to sad music for people in their 30s or something. I was like,
Right.
sure. This
And
movie
then-
simultaneously made me feel young and old, which is weird.
I can understand that. And then it went into all these great dated things, like the watching Frasier on a small TV, reading actual magazines, smoking, and checking actual voicemails. All of
On a
which
cordless
was
phone that my parents had the exact same phone. This is now
Very
the
nice.
second movie we've seen that has featured a telephone from my actual young adulthood.
we should do a tally and see how often that comes up.
Probably more than I care to admit. But yeah, I actually made a note about the scene where they're in the restaurant and her friend is unboxing his Nokia phone with the interchangeable nameplates.
Yep. And
I like found myself longing for the time where you could sit in a restaurant and unbox your like what were they like $60 IKEA phone or not IKEA $60 Nokia phone. I guess it kind of was an IKEA phone because you had to assemble it yourself. But like I miss the simplicity of that. And I also when they asked her in the newsroom, they asked her if she knew the case that was being heard that day, and she was like, yeah, sure. I was like, man, I miss the days of being able to be so disconnected from current events and what's going on, So I did find myself longing for that, like not having to feel like you need to be so in tune with what the government is doing and what is going on in the world and what is going on in the states around you. I know Britain is much smaller, but I feel now that like I turn my phone on in the morning and, the first thing I do is like, okay, what atrocities happened overnight?
Right.
What did I miss
I mean,
yesterday?
that's part of it too, right? Though, is it didn't used to be the 24-hour news cycle. It's very different, and it didn't used to be something crazy every single day or multiple times a day. It used to be that big things were few and far between, but that's no longer the case. And I mean, part of it is that we have, citizen journalism and much more going on, and everybody knows more. We share a lot more, but also, right, we're in a particularly weird time.
Yes. And I do think that's something that if this movie were watched by a younger generation today, they would not understand her like glib attitude towards this big, actually very relevant to now news story.
You do know the Agani Healy case?
Yes, of course. Big case. Featuring someone called Agani Heaney.
Or two people called Kafir Agani and Eleanor Heaney?
That's the one.
I just thought that was very, I felt very nostalgic for that time.
Understandable. I don't want to let this slide because you did mention the restaurant with the friends, and I just have to say that in that scene we're introduced to the word fuckwits. I don't know, I just love that word. It's great.
It feels like it was a very slang term for that time.
Probably.
It was
One
good.
thing that aged well and doesn't mean something I don't know, but it sounded awesome to me.
I'm assuming
I would use
it
that.
didn't. I mean, I'm assuming it's like a dimwit, but a
Yeah,
fuckwit.
right. Yeah, right. It's good. And then did you catch who Jude was?
Immediately. I was actually on my first watch. I was in the kitchen and it was playing on the TV in our living area. And I wish someone had been around to see me whip my head towards the TV and hear me go, oh my God, Moaning Myrtle? And then did you catch where it was that we first laid eyes on her?
She in the bathroom.
She's in the bathroom.
Mhm.
I doubt that was on purpose.
No, I'm certain.
Because when did this come out in relation to the first Harry Potter movie?
It was really close.
Yeah.
We don't see her until the second one.
Oh, that's true. So
It's Chamber of Secrets when she shows up.
yeah, so that came out in 2002.
Okay,
So
right
seeing
there.
her in the bathroom for the first time in this movie has nothing to do with the fact that she was Moaning Myrtle in Harry Potter. But
it's still
I
a
heard
pretty
her
great
voice
casting.
through the phone and was like, oh my God, that's Moaning Myrtle.
Uh-huh.
The actress is Shirley Henderson, and yeah, her first scene is in a bathroom, which I just thought was beautiful. Even though obviously no relevance because of the timing, but it was
Right.
it was just such a weird reverse Easter egg, I guess.
After this, we get to jump to The Office, to the publishing house. And a really dumb note, but I was curious of your opinion on this because I kind of liked it. I actually think the MSN icon is kind of nice. Like a little butterfly combined with the Windows logo. I don't know if you caught that on her, but I was like, I didn't remember that that's what it was.
I did.
But I was like,
yeah,
that's a nice little icon. I like it.
it was the MSN Messenger.
Yeah.
I believe. Yeah, The Office. I am always cold. But some of the things that Bridget wears in The Office are so unrealistic because most women's clothing is very lightweight to begin with. Like most women's dress shirts, and I'm sure you've seen this in some of the stuff your wife has, like most women's dress shirts are like borderline sheer, if not sheer, polyester type material. And when I was going into an office, if I had to wear a dress shirt, I had my millennial emotional support tank top underneath, and then also usually a t-shirt or long sleeve shirt of some kind because I was always so cold, and then also had a cardigan or blazer on top of that because it was still so cold in the office. I've never been able to wear like flats without socks in an office. So the fact that Bridget shows up in like a micro mini skirt and nylons one day blew my mind. But then the sheer shirt with the bra, like I was once spoken to about wearing shorts with a 5-inch inseam with opaque tights and over the knee boots, like because there was too much skin showing. Even though you couldn't actually see my skin, you saw tights. Tights! So the fact that she shows up in basically completely sheer shirt, but you can see every detail of her bra. How are you not freezing? And how is everybody just okay with this?
So I have a couple comments on that. One, when the owner of the company is someone you call
It's perfect.
clearly there's some cultural issues there.
That too.
Two, when you're flirting with your direct superior, that's yet another thing. She clearly was towing the line a little because she was.
I believe the quote later in the movie is,
never dip your nib in the office ink.
Right.
Which I at one point in my notes had said, don't shit where you eat, Bridget. Of course, the British version is much more eloquent, but either way, yeah.
But that shirt, which Daniel comments on directly, again, going back to the Renee Zellweger of it, made me think of...
I think Music Town is actually torn on the revealing garment issue.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Gina, get dressed. So
welcome to Music Town. May I service you?
That was just a fun little Empire Records callback. Anytime I can.
Was this Mark with a C or a K? Because I actually had it with a K.
Oh, that's a great question. I had K. I assume K.
I did
He does
too.
not feel like a Mark with a C.
No, not at all.
Always mess with their minds.
We have gotten derailed.
That's all right.
Speaking of derailed, I guess that's a
Yes.
fine segue. Quite a few times while I was taking notes, I referred to Bridget as messy.
Okay.
She shows up at her mother's hungover from partying too hard the night before.
Right.
And, while she's smoking and drinking, talks to a basic stranger that her mother's trying to set her up with about quitting smoking, quitting drinking, how she's hungover and should have her head in the toilet. And if you look at her, like, it's so interesting because a lot of the Y2K fashion is back in right now. So some of the fashion in this movie didn't feel all that dated. But like her hair in this movie is like these grown out highlights that now every time I go to my hairstylist, I'm like, let's do a lived in look so that I don't have to see you for 6 months. So she had these like long ass roots that said she wasn't maintaining her hair and she didn't wear a lot of makeup. And, her hair was kind of messy at this event where she also like shaved her legs and waxed her bikini line and did all this other ritualistic stuff that women do to get ready. And she's barely wearing makeup and she doesn't do her hair. In movies today, like everyone is so done up and perfect looking, and like the main characters in these rom-coms have these perfectly like waved hair, or when it's messy, it's like perfectly messy. And I actually quite liked that she was so messy that it felt relatable.
Well,
Like,
and don't you think it's supposed to contrast against like Natasha or Lara, like these other
absolutely.
women that she's up against in this movie who
That are a bit more
are
polished.
supposed to be put together like this.
Yeah, and I just really liked it. It was quite. It was actually kind of refreshing. And at one point, I was like, man, if this movie, and I might be getting ahead of ourselves, but if this movie was redone now, I feel like there would have been like when they were like,
First, the gorgeous.
I feel like that would have instead been like a very vapid makeover scene, almost like in She's All That, or even in Clueless, where they like, you know, take the glasses off the ugly girl and suddenly she's pretty. But there wasn't any of that in this movie, and I really liked it.
I have to ask, because it bugged me every time. I understood a lot of the like family connections with Bridget's family and the Darcys and Una and all these people that had a really tight knit group. Why was Natasha at the book launch? I could not figure out for the life of me. I understood every time she was somewhere else, like it kind of made sense, but I didn't understand why she was at the book launch because Mark was there because she was there. Why was
she
she
seemed
there?
to be friendly with
Perpetua?
She seemed to know her, and so I wonder if it was like Perpetua was friends with her and invited her, and she brought Mark.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like it was just obviously to have them there, to have Mark there, and to get to have the aside where Natasha tells Perpetua, like, oh, he will be mine.
Just give me time. Give me time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It just didn't really make a ton of sense to me why she was there. So I was curious. As painful as some of the humor was involving her speech at that book launch, I thought it was so funny having people walk up to Salman Rushdie twice to ask him where the bathroom was. That's a
I
great
actually
joke.
loved that. Well, I loved the like duality of it because when she does it, she's looking for Daniel. And then she makes eye contact with Daniel and seemingly hears him say, oh, do you know where the loo is? And I feel like Bridget is the kind of woman who would have been like, oh, we asked the same person the same question. It is meant to be. We are gonna. And she had already been fantasizing about them getting married anyway. So I feel like that would have been like another tick in the box of like perfect match. We both asked to get out of the conversation where the bathroom was. So I liked it from that regard.
Also, he would have no idea.
I know.
It's their publishing, you know,
Well,
and he doesn't know, and he's a famous author.
And if Bridget's the one like in charge of the party, shouldn't she know?
Yeah, it was pretty great. I want to touch on a couple things. One is I just want to talk for a couple seconds about how awful Julian is when Bridget's mom leaves.
Oh yeah. The host.
Husband.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, the TV
terrible.
show guy, right? He is really awful, but also it made me laugh so much when her dad was like,
apparently she and this tangerine tinted buffoon are suddenly an item,
and called him Jaundice Julian. I mean, for multiple reasons.
Yes. I also thought it was kind of funny that her mom calls her on her birthday and doesn't say happy birthday and is like, I just want to have a chat, and then proceeds to like just dive headfirst into,
I can't deny the sex is still very surprising. You know, the other night, quite unexpectedly, I was just dozing off and I felt this huge...
Bye, Mom.
Which is not something I want to have a discussion with ever with my parents, let alone on my birthday. So
really don't want to do that at all.
Nope.
You didn't like Perpetua throughout most of the movie, which I will totally back. But I did feel like when Bridget quits,
and she has
her
her
see
back,
that Perpetua respects her. Like,
absolutely.
I mean, listen, I think all the women in that office were like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Get out of
for
here.
sure. And
That's
don't
awesome.
get me wrong.
And Daniel sucks.
Everyone in that office knew what was going on.
100%.
Like 100% knew. Because at one point she made a reference like, so what happens at the office tomorrow? And girl, they knew the second you showed up in that sheer shirt what was going on. Neither of you were subtle. And they all knew the day that you showed up in your sad gray skirt and purple shirt and it acted like he had just cheated on you because he had. They all knew that it was over.
Definitely did.
He was in a literal glass wall fishbowl and it was an open office concept thing. Everybody knew what was going on.
Right. And they were direct line of sight and she stared at him
all the time. And I don't know if you caught this, but I sure did. She didn't like lock her computer screen.
I sadly did not catch that. Probably should have. All right, well, let's go ahead and jump into the categories for what we specifically focused on. Squid, you want to kick it off?
Before we do that,
Yeah,
I have
sure.
one more thing.
Go.
I really, really, really liked, just like in Honey, I Blew Up the Kid, that Bridget got the guy without having to totally change who she was. And at the same time, he didn't have to totally change who he was either. And honestly, probably a big part of the reason that this movie was like such a hit was because I feel like so many people have partners that they want to change, and I feel like neither of them having to change and both of them explicitly saying to the other person, I like you just the way you are, was probably a big factor in the popularity of this movie.
Not only did she not have to give up anything about herself, but he directly read her diary, like read pages in which she said, I hate him, underline, underline, underline. Like, exclamation point, exclamation point. He read that, things that she wrote, and was not like, no, I'm out. And so she didn't not only not have to change, but she got to like show him some parts of her that she meant to do it, but she ended up showing him parts of herself that she would not have otherwise done, and he was still in. And in addition to that, throughout the movie, he seems so boring at the beginning. Just could not be drier. And I think so much of that is when he's with Natasha, he is boring. The first time I was interested in something Mark said was at dinner when Bridget is being just absolutely cornered as the representation of all single people. And at that couple's dinner, and then say,
tell me, is it 1 in 4 marriages that ends in divorce now, or 1 in 3?
And he, in the most deadpan, fantastic way, is like
1 in 3.
And I loved the way he was totally serious. He was just like, I know that fact. I mean, he's obviously been divorced, but he knew that fact. He said it very deadpan. And as he goes through the movie, he gets less and less boring and is expressing himself more and becoming, I think, more of who he really is and wants to be. When he gives her the whole I like you just the way you are speech, that's great. And at the very end, when he's so confident and he buys the diary, says, I thought you needed a new start. And she's like,
nice boys don't kiss like that.
And he says,
oh yes, they fucking do.
And like that character, that guy at the end is free. He's more himself than he's been at any point in this movie.
Well, and so two things relating to that. One, when Daniel and Bridget are on their two separate boats and they're like yelling back and forth and in hysterics, and he like boards her boat and falls into the water, you can see Mark holding back laughter because Natasha doesn't approve, and he's like agreeing with her to go along with it. But that's one of the first times that you see Mark see Bridget, and you see she's like beautifully lit. It's almost like golden hour, and the lights on her hair, and she's smiling and laughing and having a good time. And you see it a couple other times when he sees her, and when you see her from his point of view, she looks like different and, you know, more beautiful, and you almost like kind of watch him fall in love with her that way. Like you kind of get to see her through his eyes in a couple of little glimpses, and I really enjoyed that.
With that. Also, with the boat thing, canonically, we know that Daniel's a big Titanic fan, right?
I'm king of the world!
Yeah, I caught that.
Big Titanic.
Yeah, because when did Titanic come out? 97?
97?
Yeah, 97,
97,
98. I liked that little reference to that movie. I thought it was funny. But yeah, okay, so let's get into, do you want to talk about cinematography, since that kind of dovetails into what I just talked about a little?
Yeah. I can certainly continue on. I mean, you certainly hit on a couple points, but since my focus was cinematography, and as I mentioned at the tail end of last episode, I don't think I would have been, and I probably still wouldn't today, come up with like a really succinct definition of cinematography, because as much as I love movies and watch movies, I don't watch a whole movie unless I'm doing it for this. Apparently, I don't watch a whole movie to focus on a thing like that. I've never made a movie. I'm not that. I don't do that kind of thing. So to me, I think I've always enjoyed it and appreciated it without knowing that I was enjoying and appreciating it. It's one of those things that I think goes unsung, right? Unless you are either in the industry and have done it, or you know a lot about it. You know a nice shot here and there when you see it, but throughout the course of an entire movie, but it's so important because it's what really brings the whole visual aspect of the movie together to convey all the emotion and everything you're trying to get across. So with that said, I thought there were right out of the gate some really interesting things. The very opening of the movie is this bluish, snowy, dreary look. It really kind of matched Bridget's outlook on life, at the beginning when because it takes a little bit before she kind of hits this, starting this diary, I'm going to do better. She has to take a couple punches first. And
listen to a couple Celine Dion songs.
Right. And that's where this movie starts, in this really dreary outlook. And then on top of that, and they do this numerous times in the movie, there's these awkward angles that they'll use in the actual camera angles. The very first scene when she walks into her mom's house is this, I called it the staircase cam. This like from the stairs, looking at a weird angle, but it feels
almost like you were peeking
awkward
around the corner.
Yeah. It feels distant and awkward. And they use that several times. They use it when Daniel and Bridget are at dinner. They use it outside the restaurant. When they're first making out Daniel's place, you got this really high shot from way above them that, again, is kind of, to me, very distant, right? And at the Ruby wedding party, it was used again. So there's a lot of times where the camera, just the camera angles themselves, distance from everything that's happening, conveys that kind of awkward sense. And then I thought it was great at the turkey curry buffet when Mark is talking about Bridget, listing all the things that he thinks are wrong with her. She's surrounded by people, but they do an excellent job framing it that she still kind of looks alone. And that's I thought that was an impressive feat, to be able to have a good 20 or so extras in a shot, still make a character seem like they're alone in a crowd. And we've all felt that.
Well, they really did a good job framing her behind them.
Yep,
where
right.
you
So
could
she's
see
not
everybody's facial expressions. It wasn't like you see someone in the background that could or could maybe not be her. It was very clearly her.
Yep.
And she was very clearly listening.
Right. But also, again, there were people in front of her and people behind her and to the left and right of her, but there was no one with her. She wasn't with anyone. And again, to be in a crowd of people and feel alone is a very specific feeling, especially in your parents' home with, it's a lot. So there were a lot of things like that I thought, again, that awkwardness was conveyed. One of my favorite things you got to do twice in this was the stair shot up to Daniel cheating with Mark's wife, that you don't know at first that that's what's happening.
Yeah.
Because you get to do it twice, which is fun, but the first time you do it right, it's shot so well, it's meant you're focusing just on the back of these legs running up the stairs. You don't know who it is, and it's meant to be misleading, and then the door opens and you see two people, but it's very blurry and you don't really know what's happening, but it conveys this good sense of mystery. And it kind of reminded me of The Fugitive a little bit, when there's the whole like running up the stairs thing where he finds his wife, and there's a lot of stuff in that scene. They replay it multiple times, and every time you watch it you have a little bit more information. But so I thought that was really cool, a little frenetic, a little crazy, just following these pair of legs up the stairs the first time that you do it. And it could be Daniel, which, by the way, such a bold thing to straight up lie about. And flip that story. Like, how are you not going to get caught in that lie at some point? I just thought, man,
especially because they kept running into them at like all these places, and
the first time you find out that she's known this guy since she was a child, and that their families are together at everything, you have to know you're going to get caught at some point,
right? Like, I feel like my parents would know every detail, but maybe not, depending on the friends.
Her mom did seem to know that he was the best man at his wedding or whatever, but that was the only thing that she knew. And when she tells her that later, that's obviously what clues her in that, oh, it was Daniel that did this.
But like, why didn't her mom tell her before? And that's the other thing. Like, I'm pretty certain that my mom would have told me, like, hey, that guy that you're seeing has a history with the guy I've been trying to hook you up with since you were
I don't
4.
think she knew that that's who Daniel was. I think she knew that the guy that was the best man in Mark's wedding was the guy that broke up the marriage, basically. But I don't think she knew who he was. She might not have. Maybe
presumably they would have been at the wedding.
Yeah.
And
but,
I mean, maybe
it's one person. You saw him for 1 or 2 nights.
Yeah, maybe.
years ago.
And
It's
I don't
possible,
know that
though.
Daniel and Bridget's mom met, did they?
No, because he was supposed to go to the Arts and Vickers party and didn't.
And maybe that's part of the reason he didn't, was because he realized if Bridget's family is going to be there, they may put two and two together, and I can't have that. But also, I can have a little bit of my side piece if I don't go to this party. So it's a win-win.
Threw on both.
He was a sleazeball. Anyway, back to your thoughts on cinematography.
I thought it was super fun that they got to use that classic front of car driving shot when they were driving out to the country to stay at that little resort. I thought it was really fun because it's such a classic old movie, romancy kind of a thing.
With the headscarf and everything.
She
That then blows
was-
away in the very messy way. And then she has hair that quite
Which is
honestly was,
amazing
like,
when she shows up at the hotel.
enviously voluminous.
It's so funny. I guess one of the biggest things that is in this category that I wanted to go over was the way that they, and you touched on the opposite of this with Mark and Bridget, but Bridget and Daniel had the same thing going on in the office. Daniel was warmly lit. It was bright. The colors were warm, mostly at the office. Every time she saw him up until he cheats on her. And then the next time they're at the office, it's still, the lighting is lower. You can tell the appeal that he has is gone because she was looking at him, these bright, warm colors. He's going to be the thing that fixes my life. He's this thing I'm going to get to have a wonderful life going forward. And then all of that absolutely out the window. And then at that point, it was dull. It was, she didn't care anymore. And that's shown exactly in that fashion.
I didn't pick up on that. I was paying more attention to color theory in a different way than the lighting.
And then, I found that most of the dialogue and conversation scenes, especially with her friends, were very straight on, extreme close up, kind of, I felt, conveying how important these people were to her, that she pays so much attention and cares about what they say, and that these are the people that have been close to her throughout everything.
And almost a little bit like you were part of the conversation too, it felt like in those instances, where like they were talking to you as Bridget.
Yeah, right. I mean, it was all encompassing. The last couple pieces I have for this, which at the first time I watched this, I thought and I'm going to call this the L track because that's what I know here around Chicago, but the lighting from the L track I thought was lightning at first, and I was like, there's so much lightning going like shining into her apartment all the time.
I must have just assumed it was lightning because there is lightning later, right?
I mean,
during
there
the
might
fight
be
scene?
like a couple parts, but I'm pretty sure it's the train that runs by her apartment. There's never any sound. It's too frequent. I think there's a train that runs by.
Can we talk about the fight scene for a second?
We can. Not only do I have a note regarding this that I feel like the streets are way too well lit for what it would have been in this scene, but yes, we can definitely talk about the fight scene. What do you got?
I thought it was delightfully absurd, and my favorite part about it was after the friend goes into the restaurant like a weirdo and screams,
"Fight! Oh, quick! It's a real fight!"
And they all come outside. The camera does this thing where it kind of pans out a little bit, and the music changes, and the lights from the train start going, and the music turns into a techno remix of It's Raining Men. But it felt so Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat, and I am hoping it was intentional. And then they bust into the restaurant and then pause to sing Happy Birthday.
Happy birthday, dear, what's his name?
Which, what was that cake? It was like
I don't even know. It
building,
looked
like a Parthenon kind of a thing. Like it had columns. Like, whose birthday cake is this?
Intense. But it was also Bridget's birthday. And they never sang happy birthday to her over the dinner she made for her friends terribly. And then Daniel is like,
if I can't make it with you, I can't make it with anyone.
And it just makes her sound like a last resort. And she basically tells him to get fucked. And I loved it.
But also, it also shows again that everything about this was all about him. If I can't make it with you, then I can't make it with anyone. This is about me and my issues and who I am. And now I'm feeling all sorry for myself. And he came back to her because things were over with Lara.
And I find myself wondering if she was the one who called it off.
No, it was definitely her.
I think so.
He would not have come back, tail between his legs like that if he hadn't been left. this was him feeling all sad and pathetic and sorry for himself.
Yeah, or she just went back to New York and he thought he could have his cake and eat it too.
Maybe. It seemed kind of like he was being sad, but
Yeah,
who knows? He was acting pretty pathetic.
I did not like him.
But the last thing about that fight scene was also that they did not choreograph that. They just improv'd the fighting.
Oh, really?
Yep, it's pretty great.
Yeah.
I think they did a decent job.
Yeah.
And then it was one of the few good slow motion shots. They used slow motion a few times in the movie, and one of them was when they crashed through the window. It was pretty good slow motion use case. The last
when
couple
else did they use it?
They use it the first time you see Daniel, just a little bit, just a little slowed down, but kind of that ethereal, like, here's this hot dude that I like, and things slow down when I look at him. And then the next time that I caught that it was used was the Lara reveal. So it is the start of everything with Daniel and the end of everything with Daniel, kind of bookended by these slightly slow motion things, but any kind of real trauma, when it plays back in your head, plays in slow motion. At least for me, it does. I don't know.
You're assuming I see
when there's something.
I do not.
That's a whole separate conversation.
That is a whole separate conversation.
I see things in my head, but people talk about the voice. They can hear a voice in their head, and I don't have that.
I do.
You and my wife would have a lovely conversation about that because she does, and she finds it baffling that I don't. I don't have an actual voice. I cannot tell you what it sounds like. I don't have that, but I do see things.
Yeah, no, my husband can recall things that have happened to him in movie detail quality. I see basically black when I close my eyes, and I have the soundtrack of The Muppet Show.
How do you?
Anyway.
All right, so two last bits here. One, and this kind of wins for me for like my favorite shot. I may have already said that, but this one will take another spot if I did. When Bridget's mom comes back and her parents are reconciling and she's sitting on the stairs, and this gets a little outside of just cinematography, but it is part of it. But she's wearing her pajamas, she has her knees up, and she looks like a little kid. Like just the pose of it, the way it looks. She's watching her parents kind of figure things out and get back together, and she's kind of a little kid again. And I feel like they did a really good job. They were kind of beneath her a little, shooting up, and it just, it gave that real sense. And then when they shot that scene when she's run out in her underwear right at the end of the movie and she goes to apologize to him, it's dimly lit on the edges and bright in the middle, and there's this real focus on the two of them, but also Mark and Bridget. They're staged pretty far apart when she starts to apologize, and it gives again this sense that you don't really know what's going to happen because he hasn't yet said,
I know that. I was just buying you a new one. How to make a new start, perhaps.
And he did read about himself and then book with no words. So you don't know what's going to happen. And it was a really well used space in between them. Because again, if we're talking about cinematography, part of it also is just the positioning of people in a scene. And I thought they did a really good job leaving this nice gap between them that then gets to close when you realize that he wants to be a part of this, and she does too. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
That's all I'll end that.
Yeah, I liked that a lot.
You ready to dive back into color theory?
Yes. My second watch was a full watch through, and then I spent quite a bit of time while I was like kind of finishing up my notes and getting thoughts out of my head. I did a lot of rewinding and like rewatching bits and pieces here, just kind of scanning through to kind of revisit certain things that I thought I noticed. And I basically decided that color theory was going to be the biggest focus on it was going to be around Bridget. So I looked a lot at like what she was wearing and her environment when it was her. I decided the notable colors were red, black, pink, gray, blue, and white. Red, she wears it or is surrounded by it when she is her most vulnerable or at her lowest.
I was wearing a carpet.
Outfit that her mom picked out for her was almost entirely red. There's a lot of red in her apartment.
Even the walls are red, are they not?
She has red walls in one room and blue walls in another. That couch, that like chaise lounge is like a deep red, and the pajamas she's wearing during the Celine Dion scene are red. There's a big red banner behind her during her speech at the book launch. A red car drops her off at Daniel's when she catches him cheating. She wears red to the couple's party. The apron that she's wearing when she's trying to cook her blue soup is red. Her diary is red. She pushes pushes away a pair of red underwear and chooses a neutral like tiger print instead. And then the new diary that Mark gives her at the end is wrapped in red paper. And I would also like to note that it is a Mont Blanc diary, which I imagine is probably quite pricey. And I would even argue that the orange skirt that she's wearing during the fire pole scene falls into the red category, because that's really the only time that we see orange so obviously in what she's wearing. Black she wears when she wants to feel good or sexy or powerful or in control. The miniskirt that went on vacation is black. The bra and the rest of the outfit with that sheer shirt is black. That fantastic classic dress that she wears to the book launch party, black. The dress that we see her in at the company party is black, but it has hot pink accents, and I'll get into pink in a second. The bunny suit is black. She wears black blazers at 2 of her 3 job interviews. She wears a black sweater during her first news report. Also, I suppose worth noting, we see that she's also wearing a black thong during that news report. She's got a black blazer to the interview with Mark's client. And then at the end, or towards the end, I suppose, at Mark's party, she's wearing that black dress. Pink, I decided she wears pink basically when she's trying too hard. We see her in that black and hot pink dress at the company party, and she's trying to, I guess, impress somebody, Daniel, presumably by singing I Can't Live Without You. The first time we
Which
see
is
her
great,
at work.
because you know she can sing. Again, thanks
I
to because you
know.
know she can sing. So for her to actively have to sing bad.
It had to be really hard for her. But we see her wearing pink for the first time when we see her at work. When she was choosing what to wear for the book release party, she's wearing a pink tank top. First job interview, she's wearing a pink shirt under that black blazer. And then when she quits the job, she's wearing a hot pink shirt. So I kind of pegged it as like when she is trying too hard, she's in pink. But also at the same time, when she's actively interacting with Daniel or trying to impress him, I suppose, she's also wearing hot pink. I don't know that she was necessarily trying to impress him when she was quitting her job though. So gray, I kind of decided, was her comfort color. She wears a gray cardigan a few times and a gray hoodie a couple of times. During her little getting ready montage, she's wearing a gray towel. The day after Daniel cheats on her and she goes into work, she's wearing like kind of this muted purple top and a gray skirt or pair of pants. She wears a gray shirt under a dark gray blazer at her last interview with the news agency. During that big interview where she's got the black blazer on, she's wearing a gray shirt underneath. And when she's chasing after Mark, she's wearing a gray cardigan. And Mark showed up to her house that night in all gray. He's wearing a thick gray scarf and a dark gray jacket. And I thought it was really interesting that he was wearing the color that seemed to be kind of her comfort color. Previously, Mark was in a lot of blue, and then there's a fair amount of blue in her apartment. She doesn't really wear blue a whole lot, but she is in a blue tank top when she chases him down the street. This was kind of an in-betweener of gray and black for me, the blue, where it was almost like a comfort color to her, but also out of her comfort zone. Her kitchen is blue, and she's obviously not comfortable in the kitchen. Mark wears a lot of blue towards the beginning of the movie, and she's not comfortable with Mark. She made a blue soup.
Christ, is that blue soup?
Because she wasn't comfortable cooking. She's got a blue tank top on, chasing after Mark because she's not comfortable with the situation she's found herself in. So I guess it's kind of like a color of contention for her. And then white, I really only noticed white on her twice. And once when she gets her diary, she's wearing a little white bathrobe. And then she's also wearing, I believe, that same bathrobe again after she gets out of the bathtub after Daniel cheated on her. And I thought it was kind of like a fresh start color, right? She's getting a fresh start at the diary and then a fresh start from Daniel, kind of a clean slate color. So that's pretty much all I got on color theory.
I guess then we will go ahead into the rolling for additional categories. We're going to go ahead and roll a d20 to pick some of the specific things that we will talk about, questions we have and whatnot on the movie. I got a 15.
Did we just become best friends? Yep.
I have to pick a character from this movie as my new roommate. You know what? This actually is easier for me than I thought it was going to be. I'm going to go with Bridget's dad while he's single.
Okay.
First of all, I think I'd have my own room probably because Bridget's not usually there. I mean, other than Christmas Eve. And I think probably would serve him well to have somebody around. And can't really think of anybody else that I'd super want to room with from this. I mean, it also doesn't hurt that that actor has been in a lot of fun things. So knowing him from a lot of other roles that I've enjoyed. But yeah, I think if I had to pick a roommate, it wouldn't be the most amazing couple weeks or however long that is, months. I don't know how long they're separated, but
It's
however long
actually
that
really
is.
hard to tell time in this movie, I felt like. Obviously, it kind of spans about a year.
Yeah.
But it did feel kind of hard to tell time.
Yeah, there was a thought that I had throughout this movie that I felt like some of the scenes lacked connective tissue, and I don't know if that's intentional, but they are very disjointed. You're in one scene, and then there's not really a lot of connective tissue to tell you right where you are in the timeline. So yeah, it was a little bit tough to follow, but however long that period was, I think that's who I'd pick as my new roommate, and it would be just fine.
Yeah, I would probably live with Jude. Her voice might annoy me after a while, but she seems...
I feel like she would go talk about you in the bathroom if she was having
Probably.
problems with you.
But I felt a little bit more connected with her than with Shaza, and I couldn't handle Tom.
Also, Bridget can't have a roommate for this movie to be what it is.
No, for sure not.
If she has a roommate, it's a very different movie.
I would actually like to take a moment to note that Bridget does have very good friends. I thought it was great that they showed up and were like, bitch, we're going to Paris because you are sad.
They were cool with it when she didn't go, and they were like,
no fucking room anyway.
No. Yeah, well, they were in a Mini, which I also thought was cool because I have a Mini Cooper. So, all right, I'm going to roll. I got a 12.
Florals for spring. Groundbreaking.
What's a good tagline? To be fair, I don't know what the tagline for this movie is.
It has one.
It is.
I guess
I have it up. Uncensored, uninhibited, unmarried. What does she write down in the diary at the end? It's like lunatic, spinster.
Lunatic.
I think that would be a good tagline. Although, you know what? I did also really enjoy the quote.
Definitely an occasion for genuinely tiny knickers.
Sure.
That, I think, would be kind of a funny tagline for this movie, considering that she wears...
For me, absolutely enormous pants.
For the book launch, she's wearing a thong for her first reporting job. And then the, quote, genuinely tiny knickers that she decides on are fairly standard bikini briefs. I didn't find... she wasn't running down the street in a thong. She didn't even get a wedgie running down the street, which was impressive, honestly. So yeah, definitely an occasion for genuinely tiny knickers would be a funny tagline for this movie.
Rolling again. Number 19.
I believe you have my stapler.
Could this have been an email? AKA, was this and why was this too long? At 97 minutes, this is definitely not too long. I do not feel like this qualifies, but also, no, this could not have been an email because then it would have turned super flirty and sexy, and she already had enough problems with that.
Alrighty. 4.
Santa here? I know him.
Well, we already covered this. Where else do we know key actors from? I guess
we haven't covered all of them.
We haven't covered all of them. You
both of her
said you
parents
recognized
also in Harry Potter. So you had her mom, who was the
Gemma Jones.
Nurse. Yes, but she plays the nurse that I'm blanking on her name.
Yeah. And obviously Hugh Grant and Renee Zellweger we recognized from places.
Right.
I guess we didn't talk about where we recognize them from.
Yeah, I mean, well, so Renee Zellweger I've known from as long as, I think 11 of 45, which probably nobody really knows, is the first movie I might have seen her in. I don't know that it holds up, but I really enjoyed watching it way back. And then, right, of course, Empire Records and Jerry Maguire.
She was also in White Oleander.
See, I never saw that. So Hugh Grant's somebody that I've known, but has been tangential for me because I don't watch a lot of movies like this.
Same.
And so, and just always, kind of gave me the from long ago.
Yeah, I
He
was
was
never really like a Hugh Grant fan. Like, I didn't find him particularly attractive. I didn't really find him particularly attractive in this movie either.
I mean, he also was one of the first sort of actors to come out as truly problematic, at least in our like lifetime. It was something that long before, right, these days where people know very quickly what you're doing. He had a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
His character sucks, obviously, in a lot of ways, but his kind of dry sense of humor did work for me sometimes. Like his whole thing with when Bridget's on the phone at the beginning and the FR leave it or whatever that guy's name was that she's having, and he's like, oh, the one who died like in the 70s, like that guy.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
His delivery on that's great. He's very funny.
When they're in bed and she's like,
that thing you just did is actually illegal in several countries.
He's like,
well, that is, of course, the major reason I'm so thrilled to be living in Britain today.
and then she's like, do you love me? And he's like,
shut up or I'll do it again.
I thought that was really cute.
Right. Again, his humor, I think, is probably the only part that's really like winning.
Yeah. And then Colin Firth. I didn't really see a whole lot with him in it. He's in The King's Speech, which I haven't seen.
Which is great.
He's in Mamma Mia, which I also haven't seen. He's in Love Actually, which I also haven't seen.
Right. But he's also in Kingsman.
He's also in Shakespeare in Love, also didn't see. And The English Patient, which I didn't see.
I feel like this kind of modern retelling of a classic kind of a thing is, I mean, even if it's not directly that, but like, you know, it's obviously supposed to have these Pride and Prejudice ties, is a good place for him. It's a good wheelhouse.
I thought you were going to say that it was a very late 90s, early 2000s thing to do because there was a lot of it.
You had tons of Shakespeare being redone.
I mean,
everything.
Like Romeo and Juliet, but also 10 Things I Hate About You. And
She's All That's one, isn't it?
I think so.
Some kind of a
very
thing like that.
Pygmalion-y, which isn't, I guess, Shakespeare, but it's very Pygmalion.
But like it's another one of those
retelling of the classics. Yeah.
A couple other notes I had. Really, we can't not talk about the soundtrack to this movie. To Bridget Jones.
Yeah. The soundtrack was pretty good.
Like, not only was the soundtrack to this fantastic, you had All By Myself, Respect, Fly Me to the Moon, I'm Every Woman, It's Raining Men, which this version was sung by Ginger Spice. I don't know if you caught that.
Oh, I didn't.
I looked it up. It was Ain't No Mountain High Enough, and 2 songs about Miss or Mrs. Jones, which is big.
One of them by Robbie Williams.
So it's just a really solid soundtrack, despite not having a Mr. Jones by Counting Crows thrown in there for that. Fine, whatever. Also, all of the songs feel like something she would legitimately listen to.
Absolutely. They were all very timely songs.
They had the right vibe for where they were in the movie and for something that the young women in her 30s would listen to. Like it all felt very real. So it wasn't just, you know, hey, let's shoehorn in a bunch of random stuff. This all felt like stuff she would actually legitimately listen to.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so what did you rate this?
So despite the fact that it may sound different from this conversation, because I got impassioned about a few parts of it, I only gave this a 2. Really, I probably won't go back and watch this again. Certainly not after having watched it 3 times. But even if I had, you know, I'm glad I've seen it. I definitely didn't have a bad time watching it, but it's all right. It's a little bit kind of below a middle of the road for me, and I felt like that was 2 was about where it landed.
Okay, yeah. I gave it a 5 out of 10 tentacles. I didn't hate it. I didn't absolutely love it. I don't know that I would necessarily like seek it out as like a comfort movie, but I am kind of curious about the rest of them in the series, and I might, the next time my husband travels, sit and watch those if I have time. I'm probably not going to make time for it, but I'm like invested in the characters, and I did see the first like 5 minutes of the second one by mistake. So I know how it starts. By the way, it's very similarly. I was very confused for those 5 minutes.
It would have been amazing if you somehow didn't know and made it all the way through and we watched 2 totally different movies.
We need to roll for our next movie.
Looking forward to it.
I am too.
For page number, we have a 6.
All right, I'm going to roll 2 digits for the row numbers. So here we go. I got a 1 and a 1.
And the movie is Easy A.
I haven't seen this. I'm excited.
You're in for a treat with this one. I have seen it.
Okay.
So now it is time to roll for what we're going to focus on in Easy A. All right, Squid, why don't you go ahead and roll for what you're going to focus on during Easy A?
Okay, I'm rolling. And I got a 5, which is cinematography, which is what you paid attention to in Bridget Jones. So I better step it up.
All right, and for my role, I got a 4, which is fashion.
That's truly your expertise.
I mean, listen, we'll just do the whole pod on it next time. So everybody buckle up. You're ready for 2 hours of me talking about people's clothes.
All right. I'm really looking forward to seeing Easy A.
I'm looking forward to seeing you, because
It is actually wishlisted for me, and you have it marked as a favorite. It is from 2010, so we're rolling into another decade.
This is one I know I own.
Okay, it's on Prime, and let me check if my library has it. Oh, we have a DVD available at my library.
Fantastic.
I'm gonna have to battle the PlayStation 3 again, like an adult.
You ready to end this?
Yeah.
Well, that'll do it for Bridget Jones's Diary, and we will see you next time with Easy A.
All right. Peace. I don't know what I'm doing. We have our closeout, so
doesn't matter at all.
Until next time, thanks for rolling with us.
As always, hit that subscribe button, follow us on socials at CinemaRollPod, check out our website, cinemaroll.com, and leave us a review. Cinema Roll is produced by Jacob Balson and RJ Hay, and edited by RJ Hay. Music is sourced from Pixabay, and mixed by RJ Hay.
Perpetua?
Fishball.
There it is. Turkey curry buffet. Mark is dull and has a gherkin up his backside.
Ah, okay, I'm done.
Christ, is that Blue Sue?
Yes.